Hi everyone. It's been a while I did live. Just gonna give it a minute for some people to come in. Hi everyone, is Promise Sodera Onu. My boss is here already. You can send me a request and then you can join live. Well done. Sent request already. Trying to accept or send you a request. I'm accepting, but it's not going. Just type something on the make a comment on the live and I'll see if I'll bring you up from the comment section. I'm accepting the request, but it's not going. So make a comment, just comment hi or something, and then I will bring you from the comment section. Aha. Hopefully it will work now. Sometimes Instagram is... I've sent you a request, so hopefully, yes, you are here. Hi, Sujan.
Hi. Sorry, the light might be excessive. Hi.
Yeah. How you doing?
Doing quite well. How are you?
I'm good. So let's get straight into it. First of all, I would like you to introduce yourself so that I don't make mistakes trying to introduce you myself. Yes, so you could
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead. Yeah.
Thanks for that. So my name is Sujan. If you couldn't guess from how I look, I'm Indian. It's autumn, so I might be wearing some autumny clothes. I'm actually based in Tokyo, Japan. Over 3 decades of experience here, working, studying. In terms of my academic background, um, American undergraduate, and then I have a master's, 2 masters from the UK. So my accent is kind of mixed, half American, half British, half, well, that's too many halves. A little bit of maybe Indian also mixed in there. So, bear with that hodgepodge of accents.
I must say your English is quite uh, fluent, very understandable, easy to assimilate. So well done.
Thank you.
So you are in Japan, and I believe you said it's +9. So what's the time over there?
I think it's 3 a.m.
Oh my God! It's only 7 here. So I want to really appreciate you. For those that don't know, Sujan is my boss. He's one of those that will help you to access funds, and he's a public speaker. He's an international speaker, goes from countries to countries, speaks on different issues, liaise with businesses, help people to progress. And, he's just introduced himself the most humble way he could, but he's a great man and I appreciate having him on my life. So, Sujan, to the point, thank you for being awake at this time of the night where you are. And I appreciate the time difference, and I understand that it must be a sacrifice to be here. So without wasting much of your time, let's get straight into the topic. So today we want to discuss telecom in Africa. And we're going to look at Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous country in the world. So, if we could have an Africa sort of view, but then using Nigeria as a case study. So, I would like the conversation to be fluid. Would you mind at any point if anybody sends an invite to join us, or would you want it to just be 2 of us?
They can join. I'm open to
Okay.
that collaboration.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, good. Just because in this community, people like to join and have conversations, so that would be good. Just wanted to clarify that. So yes, let's begin. Have you ever had an experience with the telecom in Africa so far? Have you been in any African countries? What was the experience like with your networks and stuff?
So I've actually done some of the largest M&A deals for telecom in that continent.
Oh, wow.
Safaricom was one of them. I think they did a big thing in Kenya, if I'm not mistaken. I cannot disclose the name of the other company, but there's one in South Africa,
Okay.
also the largest in the area. So
Okay.
I think Africa has a very unique diaspora, and it has a very unique set of issues. We can't really call it, one continent in the sense that a lot of things are very different, though maybe the people look somewhat similar, unlike, Asia. Like
Good
I'm
evening, sir.
Asian, there's East
Yeah,
Asians,
good
and
evening.
people
Please
look
mute your
vastly
mic.
different.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm telling him to mute his mic. Yeah.
No issues. So in continents like Asia or Europe, people look vastly different. And in Africa, because people tend to look somewhat similar, the general population thinks that, it's all smooth sailing, it's all one kind of identity. I must disagree. South Africa has some of the fastest growing infrastructures. I mean, South Africa is like booming. And then East Africa, let's say the English colonized side of Africa, I think has less governmental issues than West Africa. West Africa, it's quite common to see coup d'etats or, government issues, strikes. I was in Nairobi a few months ago when the office of the prime minister was being stormed. They were throwing, burning bottles. I was there with a Japanese jetro, so I was with like government people, official escort, but the country was literally burning, and it wasn't talked about at all in the West or even in the East.
Yeah.
So I think only people in that continent would know because you're concerned about, your
What's
continent.
going on? Yes.
And also, since we're talking about telecom, both the finance side, payment systems, whether you're using a credit card or whether you're using some kind of smartphone to pay, you need the telecom. Without the backbone of telecommunication, none of these systems work. And what happens quite often when I do online meetings like this with our partners, we have quite a few. We have a few in Cameroon, we have a few in Nigeria, DRC. And when we're on a Zoom call or, Google Meets, somebody has to turn off their camera because the network is really unstable.
Exactly.
And I have grown up predominantly in Japan. So we had 3G when I was a small kid, maybe 30 years ago, closer to 40 years ago now. So we had very fast internet on the phones. We also had something called ISDN, if any of you remember,
ISDN,
before DSL.
Yeah.
So the thing after dial-up, dial-up was terrible. That was useless as far as I'm concerned. But then we had DSN, ISDN, then we had DSL, ADSL. So about 30 years ago, Japan, I think the standard network speed was about 10 Mbps. And I know a lot of countries globally that still don't get 10 Mbps. And I'm talking about 3 decades ago. So I see a lot of issues with networks rolling out. Some countries are trying to skip 4G, skip 5G, go all the way to 6G. It's understandable.
Not in Africa. 6G is not in. Is 6G now? I think you're way too fast. I mean, Japan is. I mean, if you talk about the fastest countries in terms of technological advancement, you talk about Sweden, you talk about Japan. But when you come to Africa, you need to come all the way down. Like, I mean, phone networks one of the reasons why I got interested in this, topic, and I sent it to you, Laurel, Firmino, some of our guys, is because it's depressing. Every time I have my mom out there, every time I want to call her, it's always hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. It's so frustrating. And I'm thinking to myself, we're in 2024. Now there is somewhat 5G in some places like Lagos, Abuja, maybe some city places, but then you find out that even when you go out there, I mean, I try to travel to Africa once every year. And then when you go out there, you see that your network goes to H+. And I think H+ is the one before 2G. So I don't know how it works out there, but what I know is that it is terribly, terribly poor. And they still penalize you or charge you for all those service. So they charge you for your what they call airtime. So it's not like out here whereby we pay remittless calls in a month and you get good service. Out there you have to do what they call recharge cards. So you get a pay recharge like 100 naira, for example, and that should give you like a minute or 5 minutes of airtime. Please don't quote me. And then in that 5 minutes, you are using hello, hello, hello to burn about 30 seconds. And again, probably have few conversations, within few minutes, and then the next hello, hello again, because the person has cut out. So people will just say, oh, it's just network. Oh, it's just network. So, oh, it's just network has been the thing common for Nigerians for such a long time. I don't know when, GSM came into, but I remember that was during Obasanjo's time, which is maybe 4, I think that is before 2010. I'm talking about maybe 2007. So we are roughly more than 10 years that, telecom came into Nigeria, but yet we are still struggling with, hearing people that are on the other side of the line. So I think it's a very huge problem. And people still have to pay for all these poor networks, and we have the likes of MTN, which is owned by South Africa. We have Glo, owned by a Nigerian, and we have Airtel, I think also a Nigerian that owns that one, or maybe
No,
not. I'm not very
Airtel
sure.
is owned by India. Airtel is owned by India.
Okay, Airtel is owned by India.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So,
I joined the
and then,
conversation because I recently got employed into Airtel to work as an home broadband sales rep.
oh, wait.
Congratulations.
Oh, yeah, 1999. So JTOX, does that mean 1999 is when JSM came into Nigeria? Please, I need somebody to fact check me on that. So, King, can you please turn your video? Help me, please. Are you in Nigeria or are you abroad?
I'm in Delta State, Nigeria.
Okay, so sorry, you don't need to turn your video. I understand why you turn off. That's what Sujan was saying earlier on because of bandwidth.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Light, no, they don't like.
yeah, go ahead. Talk to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just got employed to Airtel to work as a sales rep for home broadband, like person in charge of selling MiFi and router to individuals in Nigeria. Now, so we do sell 3G, MiFi and router. We do sell 4G and 5Gs. Yeah. So and it's actually beneficial to buy the router for 5G because it's unlimited, unlike MiFi and the other router that you get to subscribe to a particular amount of gigabytes, and it can get exhausted depending on how you use it. So I just started the work this week.
What is
So that's why I saw the conversation.
what is the costing and what is the speed? Let's start with the 5G, which you said is unlimited. I actually like that you can have unlimited. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very fast, and it has a mass capacity connection of 32 people. Like 32 people can connect to it, and it's very, very fast. That's the highest capacity of connection on it. Then the one of the MiFi, the little one that you can put in your pocket. Now the mass connection is 10 people. Yeah, 10, and it comes with free. If you buy it the first time, it comes with a free internet subscription of 30 gig. Once it gets exhausted, then you can renew it, depend on the amount you want to renew.
So like I asked, what is the cost and what's the speed? So you've talked about how many people can hook onto it at a time. So you said it's 32 for the 5G. So the 5G, are you talking about the router that you can put at home? And the MiFi, which I believe is like a modem you can take with you, which you can mobilely use, is about 10 people. But what is the speed and what is the cost to it? In comparison to Starlink, which is now
it's a 4G network, so it's very fast. 4G.
Yeah, but you're supposed to have like megabytes per second. But if you don't know,
Like
it's fine.
theoretical. Yeah, they usually tell you the theoretical speed.
I just got employed this week though.
Okay. Let's forgive him. He just joined. He just started this week. So
This week.
So
I mean, yeah,
I'm just 4 days into the work.
Yeah, so from tomorrow, you need to know your speed. If you want to sell this kind of products, you need to know the speed per second. Recently, I had a knock on my door. They asked me, what's your speed? Thankfully, I'm in a new estate, so we have what they call fiber to home. So it's all fiber to our home. So my internet is very fast. So, and then they try to lure us with the cost, but then unfortunately they are selling even more costly than what we currently have. So it's good we
But
have you here.
the 4G is still also very fast, though. 4G is very, very fast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we understand the technology, but we want to know the speed. So you could be on 4G, but have a slower speed.
Specific on the speed on your DM, though.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'll tell you.
Don't worry. By tomorrow, you will know. When you go back, just ask them. But do you know the costing of this MiFi?
Yes. The MiFi that comes with 30 gig, it costs just 10,000 naira.
For a
Why
month?
the router has some, yeah?
For a month?
The as in the MiFi, if you want to buy it initially, it's 10K. Then once the data gets exhausted, it depends on how much you want to subscribe. You can subscribe 5K, you can subscribe 10K.
Variable. Okay.
It's variable.
As you
use. Then for the router.
Okay.
The router, two types of router though. That's not router. The first router is sold for 15K, and the second one that is unlimited is 25K.
That's very cheap. For real?
It's very cheap. Like
unlimited.
It's not also. Yeah, unlimited is 25K. That if it's the first time you buy it, the first month is unlimited. Then if you want to subscribe it for unlimited again, you have to pay 20K.
Sujan, just to give you an idea, 15K. If I use the rate, I don't know. I'm just going to use 1,600 as the conversion rate. It's like $9. So $9 a month to have unlimited. So what do you think, Sujan?
You want global standards. So if you're comparing it to the West, like the US, it's different for each state, of course. Like New York, California, very expensive. But I think even with the speed cap, I mean, it's not that bad. He mentioned it's 4G. There are many types of 4Gs, by the way. 4G also has different tiers of 4G. There's also 4G plus, by the way. I think that's affordable, but if you think about the CPI and then also the living costs, I think that's not really cheap for telecom. I mean, even though it's unlimited, if you think about the parity in incomes,
for a Nigerian context, I would actually I was misjudging because I'm in the UK, so I'm using 15,000 naira. How cheap it is to me. But for somebody in Nigeria, 15,000 naira could easily be half of your income if you're.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yes, it sounds rather expensive because you're probably thinking in pounds, and I'm thinking like East Coast, West. Yeah. So, the standard internet in Japan, for example, your theoretical speed, it's always unlimited. For your house networks, they do not give data because they don't really care. So the standard plan is 1 Gbps, 1 gigabit per second.
Wow, 1 giga.
That's the minimum you get. Okay. So
what are we talking? So everybody has a baseline of 6G or 5G.
Well, so I'm on my phone, but I can show you my other phone, which is probably connected to.
That's crazy.
But my phone is on my 5G, so on my cell phone I get around 900 Mbps. It's really fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's nothing like buffering there. Like you could watch like a live football.
4K video, live stream, super 4K sports. In Japan, we have 4K TV, by the way.
Everybody, for the public.
Yep, everybody uses standard speeds of 1 Gbps. My house, because of what I do, I have a 10 Gbps connection, and it's also very cheap. It's about 3,500 yen. I can tell you in dollars, it's about $28 per month. So I would say that's very affordable.
Wow.
Yeah, but think about it. With the Japanese salary, it's about $2,000, maybe $2,200 a month, and we're only paying something like $28.
Wow. Yes, that's what I pay. I pay like £20 for mine.
Sounds
well
about right.
On your phone, you still have to have your own phone network, which is understandable. I have unlimited anyway because I don't like any issues with finishing my data through the month. But that's very, very impressive. I don't think anybody in Nigeria, and bear in mind, they are still laying like undersea cables now in Nigeria. So we have about 13 There is one popular one, Eluda 2 or something like that. So they might have something. No, I don't think you can match that speed in Nigeria. Not even in Africa. I don't think in South Africa will have that speed. That's way too much.
We might not have 900, but we might have 100. But
Yes,
100,
you can have 100.
That's sufficient.
100 would be on broadband. What I know is broadbands are way better than normal mobile networks in Nigeria.
Yes, of course. But Smoke, do you understand what he said? He said he had 10 giga.
Yep.
10 giga per second.
Gbps.
That's 10 giga per second. That means if he wants to download anything now, even if it is a 2 hours video, if you press it on that seconds, he will be downloaded on his phone.
Done.
That's because Japan is the only place that has 6G. That's 6G.
Oh no, we are still on 5G. Wrong number of fingers. There are 4 countries that are working on 6G, theoretical 6G. Japan is working on it. India is working on it. China is working on it. Sweden and also Netherlands. So 5 countries. Each country's 6G technology is so different that the numbers they're talking about is completely different. Japan, they finished a test about 2 months ago, August. The theoretical max throughput was 406 terabits per second. It's a university test, so it's not real use scenario, but you can download anything, upload anything in an instant, because that is ridiculous amount of data bandwidth, I would say.
Sujan, I just noticed on my TV, my normal channels are all over the internet now. So I think they are pushing the world to a point that everything has to be over the internet. Your radios is over the internet, your cars are over the internet, everything are over the internet. So that's why they are trying to expand it. I heard that 6G is like, I don't know how many times the 5G, whether it's 10 times or so. So I agree with you, but terabytes per second, that's madness.
And now because we have, at this moment in time, we are using more data. So we need more accessibility to data to find answers. That is why, everything is on the internet. Plus, like before, if you are doing like your normal data center, offline data center, it would be expensive for you as a company. So like for instance, now imagine if Netflix has to like have all the old DVDs, the old hard copies. It would be expensive to store all those. Do you get? So that's why like everything is now online, and that's why everything has to go fast to be able to get the data fast.
Everything has to be on the cloud technology. Which Amazon and Microsoft are doing very well in that aspect. Okay, fair enough. We established the difference between, Japan is a million light ways away from where Nigeria is. Now, coming back to Africa, coming back to Nigeria, we now have the new introduction to the market. I'm sure you've heard of it. I've heard about few competitors, one in Kenya, and I think I heard about one on somebody's live also in Nigeria called Spectracom or Spectracom, which
Spectranet.
Spectranet.
Spectranet has been since now.
So I believe they according to the person, they said that they have also a device that is trying to compete with Starlink. But what I'm hearing now is that Starlink price has gone up again, but Starlink is trying to make internet accessible via the satellite. So Sujan, do you have anything to say in that regard?
So the African Union is working very closely with the EU to come up with governance structures. The reason is a lot of these satellite technologies are not governed right now. Okay? So basically, they cannot monitor the data, and a lot of the governments want the data. What we send up and down, maybe it's a PowerPoint, maybe it's a work PDF, it's not important. But we are talking about important data that the government might want to spy on. That's open. If you go through a commercial business like Tesla, if you use their Starlink, for example, they have access to your data that's going in and out the satellite. It might be encrypted. They say they don't check, but they have access to the data, right? Bit by bit, it's scanned. It goes through their network. And the reason why countries like China, the US, India, even Japan are trying to capitalize on Africa while they can, early, is because before the rules and regulations are set, they want our systems, our country's system, because they can spy and get the data of these growing economies. Most of the growing economies right now, fast-growing economies, like GDP growth in 2 digits, like 40%, 60%, 100+%, they're in Africa, right? And if you look at the IMF report, by 2050, by 2075, the top 10 are going to be like 3 different African countries in the top 10 largest economies. Wow. China is still going to be there. US is still going to be there. India, and South, Brazil, for example, is going to be there. But Nigeria, that you mentioned, is going to be in the top 10 globally. Right? Of course, 2075. But that is immense growth, right? Because they have a lot of young people. They're spending now on their infrastructure. This is all types, not just telecom. There's the finance side, there's the healthcare side, there's the education. Because they're growing now, all these countries that have money now, with this issues of stagnant growth, Singapore, Dubai, you can't do anything because it's already kind of the latest technology. What can you do?
Yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm.
So they want to enter markets. They call it emerging markets. I don't like that term because the reason these countries were left behind is because the West came and plundered everything, right? If that wasn't there, we wouldn't be stuck in the past. We won't be talking about 3G. If we had maybe our local kings and rulers still sticking around, we would probably be governing it actually better than whatever was
Democracy.
left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, post-colonization, India took a long time to come out of it. Now it's a booming economy, but it took something like 60, 70 years, right? Mm-hmm. And Africa is going through that journey now, the whole continent, at a rapid pace. That's why there's a lot of, issues domestically in each country, because there's so many different ideas, so many ways of doing things. But because they want whatever they can get, we're like, I want 5G now, give it to me. If you have it, I'll get it. So they're basically getting kind of, what should I say, a sour deal. Like a lot of the Western countries don't want Chinese providers for 5G. Simple example, right? They say they're going to spy on us. I don't know whether that's true, but yes, they might have access with a back door. I'm not a guy who believes in that, but technically it's possible, right?
They do. I'm an IT guy, I can say. They do.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense then. So if all these countries adopt foreign systems, they're basically selling their most valuable asset, which is data. Mm-hmm. The information that you create, not only intellectual property, I'm talking about whatever you have. Maybe it's a picture that's going to be used, to train an AI. Maybe it's the way you write something. Maybe it's, your poetry. I have no idea. But your data is worth the most right now. It's intangible, but it's worth a lot. And we don't have access if you're using someone else's telecom. You're giving up the rights to that. So I think what the African Union is doing with the EU to create rules is fine. Fine. Kind of mimicking them, like privacy laws, they have different rules, different types of bandwidths you can use, you cannot use FM, AM, old technology, also broadband technology. But because all these mega corporations from mega countries are entering, I don't think Africa can kind of keep a hold of its own telecom industry. He himself mentioned Airtel. It's Indian, right? There's also that French company that's pretty big, I think, in South Africa. West Africa, right? What's that company's name? Anybody remember the name of that company? Very large French company. Yeah, MTN in South Africa.
Okay.
And then I think we all know of Vodafone, especially if you're in UK.
Vodafone.
No surprise there. So I think also, Orange Group or Orange Telecom or something is also French, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So all the largest telecom providers on the continent are pretty much foreign.
So are you saying
they get
MTN is not? Hi everyone, apologies. I don't know what happened there. Something weird just happened. The line just cut off. I apologize.
You see why when I talk about capitalism, you see why it's good now. You see why it's
Oh my
good
God.
now. Wow, 4 years late. 4 years.
Sujan, you can type again in the comments and I can bring you from the comment section. I'm trying to accept you, but it's not working.
I will talk after him.
Okay. If you just make a comment, I will bring you up from there. Aha, I've seen you. Right. Yeah, so I don't know, for whatever reason, we are cut off abruptly, and I hope the video is saved somehow. Otherwise, I'll just have to reintroduce. So we're having this conversation because of what's happening in Africa. The telecommunication in Africa is very, very bad. It's very, very poor. So we are discussing the future for Africa in telecoms. If you've ever been in Africa or used, yeah, apologies for that. I don't know what happened. It just cut me off. Just ended abruptly. So sorry.
It's perfect. We had a telecom issue during a telecom session, so it just. I think you planned it.
Oh my God! Yeah, yeah. Apologies for that. So yeah, you were saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think your last question was MTN.
Yeah.
MTN is very much South African, and
Okay.
I think close to a quarter of it is state owned.
Okay.
So I do a lot of projects with DIRCO. DIRCO is the South African Chamber of Commerce, the National Chamber of Commerce, and I work with FICCI, which is the Indian Chamber of Commerce, and also the Japanese Chamber of Commerce, and we do a lot of cross-border projects.
Okay.
And the thing about being state-owned is, on paper, yes, it's state-owned, right? But who owns the debt of that country? Pulls the strings. I'll explain that, super simply. For example, United States and Japan. The US has a lot of debt, national debt, held by foreign countries. The largest holder of that is Japan. Japan holds the most amount of government debt, government bonds from the US.
Really?
And
wow.
US owns the largest of Japan. So both of them have, their hands in each other's pockets in that sense. So when you say
really?
it's, owned by a country, countries like Sri Lanka, for example, their largest debt is held by China. Their number two is Japan. Can technically be pulling the strings if there's so much outstanding debt to another country. So during COVID, a lot of the African nations could not return their national loans.
Okay.
Maybe it's IMF, maybe it's World Bank loan. So they had to extend it or postpone repayment because the economy tanked. COVID was bad for, I think, all countries, right? But yeah. I'm not necessarily only talking about a trade deficit per se. I'm talking about how government bonds are sold. Countries like Japan, a lot of it is held by Japanese citizens. So Japan has, I think, the highest GDP to debt ratio for a modern, first world country, as they call it. It's something like 300%.
Oh wow!
So it sounds really bad, but it's basically held by the citizens. So it's not held externally. So it doesn't matter. Japan can keep printing money, and inflation really won't affect because the debt is internally held.
But you just said a moment ago that America owns some of the bonds as well.
Yeah. So the largest is, I think they only own something like 20%, though. I don't know whether that's a big number or a small number. Because it's a big economy.
In relation to
exactly.
Yeah. I want to chip in a quick question here. You carry on. Does that explain why Japan has only 0.5 interest rate on loans?
So let me put it like this. Japan's salary has not improved in the past 40 years. But inflation is, every country has inflation, right? And it's constant, let's say. Living costs also have gone up constantly. You might watch news and be like, every country, they complain about, I can't buy a house now, I can't go to school because the prices have gone up. I think Japan is a prime example of that because nobody's having babies. The population is declining because they're getting paid exactly the same as what they used to get 40 years ago. But nothing costs the same.
So let me chip in something again, and I hope you don't lose your train of thought. I saw a news, I don't know if it was made up by AI or right, that about 9 million homes in Japan are actually empty because there is nobody to live there.
I don't know about the exact statistics, but there are a lot of old houses. I'm talking like properly old, like 50-year-old houses, wooden houses. There's nobody to live there because, it's like grandparents lived there, then one of them passed away, and then they were living alone. They moved in with their child. There's no one to claim the house now, and nobody really knows. And again, Japan is an aging population, like extremely old, right? There are very few young people. If you look at the demography, countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, India, again, Nigeria, we have a lot of young people.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be worried about workforce. We have a lot of teenagers and 20-year-olds. Japan is the opposite. So basically, Japan is facing an issue of hiring people because they have a small work pool, but the number of jobs hasn't, reduced in size. We still have X number of jobs, but there are no young people to take on these roles. So I think Japan, its GDP this year, if you offset inflation, it's the only OECD country that's official growth is negative because of that.
Wow.
But we have good telecom, we have good healthcare because they've already spent that money, right? They kind of planned ahead and they spent it. I'll give you another very local example. In Japan, the roads, the roads they construct for, cars, basically. The plans they put in for the government, some of them are over 100 years old. So they plan to build a road. Even now, there are things like, this part will be cut off 40 years from now. But the plans are like completely there. So the whole infrastructure has been planned. Everything has been planned. I think the major issue in Japan is, first of all, it's an island, right? All sides surrounded by the sea. So they have typhoons or monsoons, whatever you want to call it, hurricanes, basically the same thing, different areas. That's one major issue. The other major issue is earthquakes.
Oh.
It is very, very prone to earthquakes. So they don't like running physical cables underground because they can't do the maintenance. You mentioned, underground cables for fiber optics, things like that. It's not very convenient because if there's something, a crack in the road or something, you don't want telecom to be cut off because it's a fast-moving economy, right? And everything is done digitally. So you cannot be like, we cannot trade stocks today. That's too bad. That's a lot of people going to lose their jobs. So because of that, they invested a lot in telecom at a very early stage. I think somebody had mentioned a while ago about 100 Mbps available. What country was that? Was that Nigeria?
He was saying Nigeria can have up to that, yes. It's not verified, he's just saying.
Well, I mean, whether that's theoretical max or not, but when I was in elementary school in Japan, so like 30 years ago, let's say, we had ADSL. It was first 52 Mbps. I'm talking 3 decades ago. Yeah. And then immediately after that, it became 100 Mbps. So about 30 years ago, Japan had 100 Mbps. Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what we're saying. Like, I mean, GSM came into Nigeria in year 2000, which is 24 years ago when someone corrected me. But that was GSM. So that was, probably ISDN and all the rest. So by the time you even go to the 3G and what have you, we are still struggling with these things. We are still buffering between 2G, H plus, and all of that in our network. So we are still very far back in Nigeria.
We're still using 3G far back as of 2013. It was actually 3.5G that we're using as of 2013 when I left Nigeria.
I'm telling you that even in 2024, we are still using that. You go to some places, it shows you 5G in the city, flips to 4G occasionally, just like in the UK. But then you go to the village and then there's no network. There are some places that don't even have coverage at all. In my village, certainly there's no coverage. And in some places, you just start seeing the H plus, and then, intermittently 2G and the rest. So, so you can see that if people are even struggling with normal calls, you need to have that to even have internet. So a lot of people don't really have internet in Nigeria. So going back to what we are discussing about, Starlink coming into Nigeria. So there was a few years ago we had something called NSAS, whereby there was a national revolution where people were protesting against police brutality in Nigeria, and that was the time that Elon Musk gave Nigeria Starlink for the youth to be able to connect to internet, because the government was trying to control how people sort of discuss about the whole riot and protest. And that was essentially after that. And then in terms of what you said, which is a very valid point, in terms of how does government keep keep their tabs on our network in terms of control, again, like what they did to Nigeria during the NSAS protest. I think it was South Africa. Bear in mind, Elon Musk is also South African. But then South African government had to tell him that he has to give them some of his shares for him to even bring Starlink into South Africa. Now they actually have that agreement. I don't know what the agreement is with Nigeria, but I know Starlink, as I heard, is now already in Nigeria. They slashed the prices as of January because of the fluctuation of the what do you call it? The naira to the dollar rate, exchange rate. But now again, I'm hearing it's gone up a little bit. About 40,000 for a year, but now it's about 50-something thousand for a month, rather, subscription. But then a huge cost of implementation. So for you to even subscribe onto it, you're thinking about 800,000, maybe 400, which is the half price, and maybe now 500. So that's quite expensive. But I hear what you are saying in terms of regulation. This is new technology. Nigeria claims to have a satellite, but I don't think that's actually functional, because that was done around that same time when we had GSM, which is about 2000, which is 24 years ago. So I think there is Google services in Nigeria, because Google came into Nigeria, and I think they've left now. So you could use your GPS to sort of travel around in Nigeria. But I believe the satellite you're probably using is probably American, So I don't know if Elon Musk had to launch his own private satellite to be able to use the Starlink product. So I don't know if that's what he's using to sort of provide these services in Africa. But if that means Nigeria will have to be routing through that personal satellite. Then it will make it difficult for them to sort of have a backdoor access because it's a private business. So what do you think in terms of? Are you thinking of bringing a competition? Because when Tesla came on board with the whole battery solution, China came on board and they brought it even down. They had a cheaper product. So now Tesla is going into this new field of satellite internet. And the SpectraNet they mentioned, I don't think I asked the question if it's satellite based. I think it's not. It's using normal phone lines. So what do you think in this monopoly that is coming on?
A little bit of, I wouldn't say insider information because that would be illegal to divulge, but inside in news, let's call it. That sounds better.
Yeah.
So including China, BRICS is working really hard. It kind of links to the finance part you mentioned, right? That whole dollar devaluing local currencies. A lot of countries, I think, are facing that. Not necessarily just Nigeria. A lot of African countries are kind of facing the issue with the local currency inflating to like 1,000,000%, so they need to kind of use the dollar. South America, quite a few countries. Africa, quite a few countries. Now, BRICS is trying to have quick remittance, so they basically want all digital payments to kind of go through their country, so we don't have to convert it from local currency to dollar to whatever, because then it's always the dollar that gains it, right? They get a small piece of that action, but from global trade and transactions. And that's not good for any other country, right? There's zero benefit to go through dollar. So they're trying to make it where you can kind of skip the middleman, America, basically, out of the picture. And in the same breadth of changing the financial payment methods, they're trying to tie in telecom. Because these digital payment systems, you require telecom. Back to that point, right? You can't pay if it doesn't connect to something, right? It's not a physical thing. You very much need the data connection. It's not, it's not like megabytes or gigabytes. It's small data to authenticate who you are. I'm sure the Airtel person knows how the OTP thing and 3D secure face and all those authentication methods. But he just needs to know that you are the person paying for a service and the other person is indeed truly the person who provided the service who should receive the funds. Very simple system, right? One-to-one payment. Without all this SWIFT or IBAN banking systems in between and all these things that take a lot of time. You're in the UK, my main business is in the US. When we do foreign remittance, even with mega banks, like BNP Paribas, HSBC, JP Morgan and Chase, these are all well-known globally speaking. Standard Chartered, they have even in South Africa, for example, pretty big bank, right? They have to use this proper remittance system. There's a delay, maybe if you're lucky, 3 days, it'll arrive. If you're unlucky, some paperwork, it might take 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, where is your money? Nobody knows. It's digitally somewhere else, right? So you're not getting interest for that 2 weeks, right? So all these things are bad for economies to grow, and you kind of need, it's like the egg or the hen issue. You need to spend something first to come out of this loop. And BRICS is supporting many, something like 27, and I think they're only like 54, right? Yeah. African countries. I think like half of them are being supported by BRICS. It's usually either China or India, I'll be very honest. They're doing a lot to bring them up to speed so that they can be a good trade partner.
Yeah.
Because they have workforce, they also have a lot of resources. You mentioned batteries, right? Zimbabwe, world's largest lithium deposits, right? A lot of countries have rare earth metals. They have precious metals that are also used in circuits, that are used in technology. So they want those countries to be able to mass produce those so that they can actually trade with them. So they're willing to give, like a 30-year advance, be like, yeah, you can pay us later. I know we know you don't have it now. We'll bring up your infrastructure to a better level so that you can start doing other things and be more productive. And then, we get paid back after a while, but we can make more profits during this whole process of 20, 30 years. So I think satellite internet is the next thing. It's happening. It's been happening for the past few years. Some countries, it'll take a while to roll out because they have electricity problems also. So even if you have the satellite link, if there's no electricity, it's not going to, you can't. So maybe solar, wind, other energies should kind of supplement the grid. But a lot of rural cities or villages, I should say, even in India, they say it's a great economy, it's big now, doesn't matter. 1/6 of the global population live in India. I don't think most of them have internet. I don't think most of them have electricity because they're off the grid. They're in the middle of nowhere, right? So a lot of these African countries have very similar issues. So the BRICS understands this, especially China, Brazil, and India understand these kind of growing issues. They kind of moving from an emerging market to this first world country. So they've gone through it in the past 30 years. So they understand what the African nations will be going through over the maybe next 20 years or 30 years. So they've been lending a helping hand. Now it's up to the African politicians and private sector. Private sector is fine, right? Because there's profit involved, everybody's happy. But when politicians are in the loop, it can slow down the process because they like to dabble in it and get a piece of the action. I've seen this in quite a few of our projects. I work with all the 5 major Japanese trading companies. You might have heard of Mitsubishi, Sumitomo, Mitsui, Marubeni. They're everywhere in the world, right? They funded the Japanese war effort during World War II. So they're huge companies.
Yeah.
They're very interested in entering the African markets early, before it becomes like a fully mature market. There's no point, I think I mentioned, there's no point in going to Singapore because what's there to do? There's no point in going to Dubai. What's there to do? It's all done. Roads are there, hospitals are there, electricity grid is there, telecom is there. You can only do new R&D, which only costs money. It's not profitable, right? It's in the short term, you're only spending so that you can reap the profit later. Africa is different because you still have the primary industries, agriculture, this creating stuff, mining stuff. That is taken and, they make it into some other technology. They use it and then they sell it back to the people of Africa. It reminds me of something that I don't want to mention, how the West used to treat my country, your country. I don't think it's changed much.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's the same.
Yes.
Because we buy it for cheap, we do something with it and make it very expensive and sell it back. You mentioned Tesla's, Starlink, a bit different, but the electrical components, copper, for example, a lot of it comes from Africa. You can't make this technology without half the things that come from Africa. Cars, especially. If it's an EV, you must have got lithium batteries, which means it's probably from some African country.
Yes.
It's usually sourced from the continent. So, but the locals of those countries and the nations of those countries are not reaping the profit, which means they cannot spend to improve their own infrastructure, right? You need to be a profitable country to spend in infrastructure. So, obviously, I am from a BRICS country, but that's not why I'm saying this.
Oh, yeah, okay, India. I was thinking, is Japan joined it yet? Okay, India, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think because China and Japan don't get along, BRICS and Japan kind of don't get along, but India and Japan have the longest national relationship. We have a friendship treaty before the war even ended. So, but, you know, BRICS, they're a bunch of countries with different agendas, right? When you come together, each country wants to think about their own country, right? You might act for pictures, you know, shake hands, but they only care about their own constituents because they need to win elections, right? Very simple. Politics is very simple that way.
Everything falls on politics, isn't it?
I mean, they make the decisions. They make the rules that govern the decisions. So
100%.
I think South Africa, because they're in BRICS, I think, I know it's the southern tip of Africa, but they are kind of the gateway to enter modern Africa. I mean, if you're in Asia, the access is usually through Dubai. Usually you come through Dubai to access Africa, but that doesn't help the continent. You don't drop taxes in that country, right? So South Africa is working really, really hard to be the gateway. It wants to be like Singapore for the African region. I think it's doing,
and that's why
I think, they're doing a good
one
job.
of my last videos, I really praised South Africa. Sometimes I'm a little bit worried about how the president is poking against Israel, against Putin, you know. No, it's not against Putin, against Israel, rather. I like the way you made the analysis, and thank you for being quite honest. And for somebody who has a lot of friends in a lot of places, to say the kind of things you say, I really appreciate your honesty. And, you know, it's like what you said about, I mean, I saw a TEDx a program when they said Africa is actually, like what you said, you know, top 3 biggest economy in the nearest future. Nigeria is there. And when people see problems, when the, you know, countries have problems, when what people then see is, of course, or what these multinationals see is, of course, money. Because, you know, when you turn problems to solutions, then you see money. So that's why Africa is the hot topic. And a few people, both Nigerians, are also making it even in the tech world. You know, technology have been helping in terms of advancement, in terms of innovations and stuff like that. And this payment, I noticed that most of the new technology or innovations that are made by young Nigerians are usually in this payment system, because we have a lot of issue with payments. And what is annoying in it, I did a video a long time ago, is in Nigeria they charge you for deposit, they charge you for receiving money, they charge you for paying for recharge card through your bank, they charge you basically for everything. Whereas in this system, we don't get charged for nothing. You could have an account for years and you don't get charged. In fact, my bank pays me for having a direct debit set up, you know. So why am I saying this? You know, I appreciate BRICS, but my own analysis, being a political analyst, or, you know, talking about Nigerian politics for a while, is that Nigeria is owing IMF a lot of debt. Just like what you said about the handshake between Japan and America, you know, buying bonds of each other country, and because of that, they cannot go and join the enemy. Well, I'm using the enemy loosely here. They cannot just go and join BRICS. So Nigeria has been invited. But funny thing is, if they join BRICS, then they will have to do dollar transactions, because they are still working with the West, and then do BRICS transactions, which I don't know how much is going to help them. Now, one of our presidents, again, I keep referencing President Obasanjo, who is the one that also brought GSM in. You know, he paid off all our IMF debt. Now, if we can somehow find ourselves in that position again, where they can either forgive all our IMF debt, which I think is nearly impossible now because they are beyond deep into the debts. Like I think it's trillions of dollars, right? About $9 or something, $1 trillion. But if they can somehow pay that off, then they've left Peter and they can go and join Paul. They can then go and join BRICS, right? Because Nigeria do a lot of business with BRICS, with China. And I think even Russia is saying that they are happy for that, the middle transaction or the middle currency to be done on yen, which is Chinese currency. And China is very well into Africa. They helped us to build our railway. They are building trains in Nigeria. And recently, our president went to China and signed a deal for China to be producing battery with our lithium. So we have a lot of that. But Nigeria is trying to be. They don't want to be used as a pawn. They don't want to be used as a tennis. They just want to be friends with everybody. They want to be friends with BRICS and friends with, as a struggling economy, as a struggling nation, they want to make as more friends and less enemies as they can, which is quite important. So I think that is why they cannot take the stance that South Africa is taking. And I think South Africa is also taking that step because even America is not allowing them to use their nuclear power or even use their weapons. So again, I can understand what they are doing as the big brother of Africa, trying to play that role of Singapore, like you said, but at the same time, they are, Nigerians' hands are tied in terms of the debts they are in, and how do they come out of that? There's so much corruption. So it's easy for some of these people to work with the corrupt ones and use them against the country. So, but that said, is Japan, in their interest in working with these developing economies, happy to invest? Because again, you have to give it to Elon Musk. He's done the research, he's done the investment, and provided a product that is as cheap as 40K or maybe 50K, depending on, if I divide that by the exchange rate, is probably about, between $30 and $50 a month, right? For people to have that speedy internet. Now, do you think Japan is willing, or do you think it's something like I told you in the inbox? Can we now be a competitor to the world's richest man?
So, obviously, I have multiple agendas myself. Not national level like countries, but because I'm not a politician, I'm a normal, nice person. Let's put it like that. I don't want to make enemies. Kind of like Nigeria, smile at each country, smile at all my businesses. So, as a for-profit corporation, we do energy, telecom, international deals. We usually work directly with the government instead of a business. Reason is, like you said, businesses think only about making money and not so much about SDG impact or creating local jobs. That usually comes only if you know you're going to be profitable doing this endeavor in that industry or sector. And we work quite often. I lean towards working with the Japanese because I'm here like 6 months during the year on average. And Japan has something called JETRO and JICA. Let me just tell you what it stands for. I think JETRO stands for Japan External Trade Organization, I think. And JICA is Japan International Cooperation Agency. They kind of work with the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They're under them. So JETRO kind of gives grants, so money you don't have to return. We've facilitated quite a few in Zimbabwe, in Zambia. Coincidentally, a lot of last alphabet starting countries. Complete coincidence. We do a lot in any sector that connects to another sector. Like I said, electricity goes hand in hand with other sectors, right? Without electricity, you can't run the show. Telecom, without that, you can't do payment, for example. So we do national level projects, and the reason we get grants is we don't take that money. We make the Japanese government pay that money to the other government.
Okay.
So what we gain is our company name, yes, good for us, free publicity, right? But now that country that got the grant from Japan is very kind to us.
To my Instagram, I really I apologize. I don't even know if we're even up to 1 hour mark. So why is this happening? I don't think we even do up to 1 hour. I'm trying to add you from the comment section. I'm trying to add you. Yes, I haven't been coming live. I think that's probably why this issue is happening. Maybe because I've not been coming live for a while. Maybe because of that. Maybe because I've not been doing live for a while. So I usually don't have this issue. I used to be able to do 4 hours straight.
Back again?
I don't really know what's going on. I used to be able to do 4 hours straight. Maybe because I've not been doing live for a while. Instagram has forgotten about me. It's just cutting me out. I don't know what I'm shadow banned. I don't know what's going on, but apologies again. And
No
just
issues.
as we were about to say the main bone of contention here, that went off, really apologized. But yes, you could develop the point again and just get to it before we begin to round up. Apologies.
Oh, yeah. So we basically try to get tax money. It doesn't need to be Japan. We've done it with Singapore. We've done it with South Korea, basically East Asia, because they're very open to this idea of giving grants.
Yeah.
And we've also worked with, I told you, JETRO gives grants, JICA, the cooperation agency. They actually give loans, like 30-year, 20-year loans, very,
Okay.
very low interest, very long loans. So hopefully in 2 or 3 decades, these African countries have grown enough that it won't matter. The interest is, peanuts.
Yeah.
And they can pay. You mentioned the IMF thing. IMF, World Bank, both very, very touchy to negotiate those. We actually have 2 people from both the World Bank. We also have the African Development Bank. So we have quite a few people we've poached from those organizations so that we know how to approach them. But like you said, the outstanding is kind of not a small number for most of the countries in Africa.
Yeah.
So, I mean, negotiations are hard, but more importantly, we need to find a venue so that governments can help other governments and create a mutual relationship that's beneficial for Africa. That's what I think.
Okay. So what you are offering is basically government carrying out or deciding which of these solutions to use or the companies to work with, but you are happy to sort of link governments with, for example, the government of Japan to get these loans to be able to work on this project like the telecom.
Yep.
Is that correct? Okay.
We do that.
Understood. Now, the other thing would be, because everything is about contacts, everything is about network. I might have a few rich, but I don't think I have people in high places. So how would somebody, or how would you normally get in touch with government, or how did you normally get government agents or people, or before, when you worked with other countries? What do you think?
So besides my company, I told you I wear multiple hats. So one of the NGOs I work with is a non-national chamber of commerce. So it's an NGO chamber of commerce.
Okay.
There are quite a few private chamber of commerce. And the one I work with is globally, it has the largest number of members. So it's technically the world's largest chamber of commerce.
Okay.
The name of that is Asian African Chamber of Commerce. So there's Africa in the name. And we're in about 173 countries, and I have no idea how many territories. In Japan, we have 3 offices. I'm the president for the whole country, and I'm not even Japanese. It's the only country that doesn't have a local president for the country at the national level. because I have more connections. So this connects to the point you were mentioning. So we go to, I have free access to all the embassies here. So,
Okay.
you know, the term, they usually have 1 or 2 year stints, and then the term ends and they get a new ambassador. So every time there's a new ambassador, I get to meet them, and we usually work directly with the Office of the Prime Minister back home.
Yeah.
I know there's a time difference, but I mean, it's 4 o'clock, I'm awake, you know, I work 24/7. It doesn't matter the time. So,
Yeah.
so it's not that my light is off. It's just that it's really dark because it's 4 a.m.
No, we could see you. We could see you perfectly well.
Good. Yeah. So we directly talk to either, you know, the first secretary, or maybe if they have an overseas branch. It depends on what countries we want to link. For example, if I go to Nigeria, okay, I have never visited Nigeria, so that's a bad example. Let's use a country I've visited in Africa. Besides Kenya and South Africa, because we already talked about it. Okay, Cameroon, since I mentioned Cameroon, but we didn't go into detail. So Cameroon is kind of the cusp of the English-speaking and French-speaking, you know, kind of like in between. So they usually speak both. So it's, I would say it's also very conveniently located near, you know, Nigeria and other fairly big economies. So it's kind of in the center where, you know, Africa kind of bends, you know, there's like that Cape area.
Yeah.
So when we go there, we don't only meet the local government officials, you know, not just the Cameroonian government. We also go to the local embassies of other countries in that country.
Okay.
So it becomes easier to link government level people, because as a company or as an NGO or whatever I do, I cannot make the decision, right? It comes down to some politician who has power somehow who will make the final decision. And even if it's very good for the people, I cannot publicly talk about it because the politician person might not be very happy about it, because he might have other agendas, right? You mentioned about corruption. I mean, India, highly corrupt. They're trying to make it better. Yeah, maybe not anytime soon. A lot of African countries have the same issue. There's a lot of nepotism, you know, like family members become the ministry head and this and that. So a lot of these countries have similar issues, I would say. You know, if they're the minister of mining, they also have a mining company and they do gold. It's super common in Africa.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is that okay? But, you know, they do it.
Conflict of interest. Yeah.
100% is a conflict of interest. Yeah. I mean, I would think that's, you know, they would have moved on beyond that, but I understand. You know, we're only human.
It's worse off in Nigeria. So in Nigeria, I have a friend that said he's been promised a contract, and this is in December, but he's told to bring about 20% of what the contract is worth to be able to get the contract. So he's supposed to pay this particular government person, you know, a bribe to be able to win the contract. And then when he's won the contract, you know, how much has he already spent? You know, how much does he use to mobilize and all of that? So, you know, it's the shameful reality that we have in Nigeria and Africa as well, in some other places. So, okay, that established. What do you think you would be looking to be able to, you know, overcome that challenge or any other challenge? What would be the easiest way for you to sort of come in, work with this government? And again, you said when you mediate this sort of you know, to get these funds or grants, then the receiving end, we can pay you some tax or pay you some, be kind to you.
It depends. We do a lot of goodwill projects. Goodwill in terms of accounting, the term goodwill. So what we actually get out of it is entry into the market. I think I mentioned that. So, you know, as a company, we do a lot of things. We do consulting, which is the boring stuff that all the Western countries do. That pays for the whole show for the company. So we do these national level projects, and we usually don't charge either party. We just kind of do it, and now we have access to that country. And then we sell a service or a product that we have as a company, because now they cannot really say no to us because they kind of owe us, is what we tend to do. We don't sell something that's cheap and garbage. No, we don't do that. We sell things that have been kind of tested and vetted in other markets, and we should sell it at a high price point, because in the US or UK we sell it at like exorbitant amounts because there's money to take. In these other countries, Southeast Asia, for example, Africa, we sell it sometimes even at a loss because we don't actually care, because we're making profits from the other markets that we can kind of take from. You know what I mean? We want to create that long-term goodwill so that, 10 years down the lane, 20 years down the lane, when those countries are powerful, we can still use these connections.
Yeah.
That's when it'll be of value to us. We don't need it now. We're kind of planting the seed right now. We're watering it, and we'll keep watering it till that first, the sapling comes, and then we'll start thinking about it. Should we start cutting the leaves, taking the fruit? But right now, we kind of work in that continent. We give more than we take. It's kind of a unique business model. But because we're a global company, we're in the US, we're in most of the, easy to make profit countries.
Okay.
Japan is definitely one of them. We're in Germany, we're in UK, we're in China. I'm not sure that it's easy to make a profit there, but we're in China. We're in all these major economies, and they have money. So we prefer charging those who have money, kind of like Robinhood. We call it, yeah. It's kind of like a green pacifist capitalism. We don't take from those who don't have. That's why we call it Robinhood. We take from those that don't and give it. We take from those that have and give it to those that don't, because we kind of want to feel good at the end of the day. We don't want to be like we robbed the population. That's kind of how India came out of it. My country came out of it, India, a lot of African countries. The whole concept of kind of like treating a country subservient, like the people are slaves kind of mentality, I don't understand. I've said on many stages internationally, like, we should bring everyone up to your level, because then we can, start actually doing stuff. If somebody is in the favelas in Brazil, or, homeless in India, I mean, what can you do? You kind of can only give. You can't take anything, which means they're not adding to your value or to the country's value, right?
Well, they're taking the mineral resources.
I mean, they need yeah, but they need handouts at that point, right? Because they have nothing. So we kind of want to bring them up to the bare minimum at least, or I would prefer if they're, shoulder to shoulder with me, because then we can do real business. Then I can start taking money from them, because I'm providing something they need. And also now, I'm rubbing your back. You can also kind of scratch my back now.
Exactly.
That's how kind of businesses work. So we work.
That's why I really like, sorry for cutting you in again. I think that's why I really like what China is doing for Africa, as against what the West is doing for Africa, whereby they just keep giving them money, or all in the form of aids, foreign aids, and the corrupt politicians are going to bring it back to your system. So you're just recycling the money that comes back to your economy. Whereas Africa, China is giving them real infrastructure, real railways.
You don't know the end game. You are saying they are giving them railway, they are giving them this. What if they are the ones that own it? What if it comes to a time whereby, okay, now they want to control the country, and then they own all the most important, they own your telecommunication, they own your transportation, they own everything. What can you do?
But that's the same with America anyway. I think they own all of our system. We all depend on Google. We all use Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Facebook. All of that is American. So,
and that is why, if you look at all the developing countries and all the countries that are up there, right? At some point, they control majority of all these things. And if you are coming into my country for business, I have to have a court. And by me having a court means my country has to have control. You can't just come and make money off me and I don't have control. It's not possible. Do you understand? Why is China dominating today in the automotive business? That's because when US thought that they were going to China for cheap labor, China told them, yes, you can come for cheap labor, but Oga, you will first of all create a factory, then join your factory with our locally made factory. Now, guess what? In those 10, 12 years that they were enjoying the billions, selling all the cars, guess what China was doing? They were learning how to make car. Now they know how to make car. Now they don't even have to make law. to chase out American cars. Their cars are cheaper. Their people will go for it automatically. Guess what? American companies are closing. That is why you are seeing America-China trade wars. That's why you are seeing America block some things from China. Hey, NVIDIA, don't send all those massive chips to Nigeria, to China. Because if you send it, they will now know how to make all those chips. They'll be better than us. The problem with our own government, we don't have long term.
Understandable.
Our own is, oh, you want to bring starlink? Give us money. How much is my cut? Give me 3 million. I will approve the deal. Shikena. Instead of, if Starlink wants to go to China will tell them, is first of all the data that you are taking from China has to pass through one of their own organization first of all before you even reach China.
Yep.
Secondly, even if they enter, China can say, is we must control 20%, or one of your board of directors has to be from China. They have to just have a say. You can't just come into my country and just think everything is cool. And that's the problem we have in Africa. All these countries just come in here and they just do anything. And what do we say? Hey, they are coming to loot us. Now we are saying China is helping Africa. Then in 10 years, I'll be 20 years later, you now start blaming China the way you are blaming America. Didn't America itself come into all these places? Are we not blaming America now? It's the same thing we'll do to China. It's the same thing we'll do to Russia. We have to start creating something or know how to own equity, not get cash. Own equity.
Yep. Two points you mentioned. 100% agree. One is 2010, maybe 10, 20 years down the lane, China, we would be blaming them because what China tends to do is they take over an industry. Like, this port is mine now because you could not pay me back. Or this whole airport is mine now. You know, they take over industries. Like, this whole mining thing is now mine. So they do take away. And what we try to do is, instead of giving money, like you said, that's useless, right? You know the whole old proverb, instead of giving them fish, teach them how to fish?
Yes.
We believe in that. Because at some point, then they would be standing on their own feet. Now they become a trade partner that we do not have to worry about. They are doing their own thing. And you mentioned China. So they like to reverse engineer. Maybe to the point of copyright or IP infringement. But you can't fight with a country of that caliber, right? US, China, Japan, these are South Korea, these are countries that are beyond that. Like, if it's business to business, maybe, you know, my friend stole it or something, okay, small things. But because they're so powerful, the companies are also, I mean, some companies are worth more than some countries. How does that even make sense? I mean, it sounds like a failure of capitalism.
How does, no. See one again. What about, what's his name? Amazon. They predict that by 2030,
Bezos?
Amazon, not as in just Amazon, the company. They predict that it will be bringing in $1 trillion in income. $1 trillion. Nigeria.
That's going to be the value of his shares.
Nigeria, I know they bring $1 trillion in income, but the company is bringing it.
Yeah, I mean, he was worth something like 300 billion or something, right? At peak. And I think Musk was also something like that at peak, but I think the difference is it's held in a very volatile, I mean, it's held in stocks, right? Like you mentioned, equity, the shares. So if people don't trust, like Musk, it keeps going up and down because that guy speaks whatever he feels like speaking. You know, he might say something genius one moment and then say something completely crazy, and you're like, why did you say that? You just lost like 20% of your value.
But what I mean by giving that example is, for instance, now let's look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon, right? A lot of people hate that guy today, right? But guess what? Go to their house. You will see boxes of Amazon there. You hate the guy, but he brought value to you. Why didn't you bring the value? You understand? When he started with his bookshop, everybody was laughing at him. You get? Now he has created that empire. And anyways, later.
Okay. Sujan, thank you so much. Smoke, thank you so much. In rounding off, if we have, of course, I upload my videos to YouTube. My Instagram get about, I think, 7K in the last 1 month visit. So if, for example, a Nigerian or African government official is watching this video, what will you say to them? How do you sell, your company? You can mention your company name. You can, mention your Instagram account, your LinkedIn. I follow you on all these places, so I know what you do and who you are. But just for somebody who doesn't know, government official. And again, I want you to also clarify, just so it's very clear, what your work entails and where it stops, or, what other services your company, I would like you to be the one to mention the name of your company, provides in terms of services and products. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the floor. So let me just say my name. My name is Sujan Sanku. I think we did it 2 videos ago because it cut off.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be able to spell it, so you probably should just follow me through his account. That would be the easiest. It's a Sanskrit name, and that's a dead language, very old language like Latin. Again, Sujan Sanku. My Chamber of Commerce that I work with, it's an NGO, that's Asian African Chamber of Commerce, largest in the world. The company that I work with, or that's mine, I should just be very frank. One is called 99 Infosystems, and one is called Clearview. The easiest way probably to reach out for official business would be LinkedIn. Thank you. And I've lived in Japan for a long time, and I'm Indian by citizenship. So most of my, I think, official accounts would have Japandian in it. I think even my LinkedIn has my name and Japandian in it. I think even my X or Twitter, whatever it's called nowadays, my Instagram is Japandian. I was just reminded now, kind of surprised. So I try to use my Japanese identity, though I don't look like it, as much as I can. So I think LinkedIn, on all SNS, Facebook no, because Facebook, I use it for family only, say hi, happy birthday, things like that. But we are also a Tokyo Metropolitan Government partner. You can probably find my face on 3 or 4 different Tokyo government sites. I'm usually in a suit, so I look a bit more professional. 4:30 in the morning, I'm not going to wear a suit. Yeah, but
thank you.
We do consulting. We help trade. We are in probably all industries besides manufacturing, because we don't do manufacturing, but we do R&D with universities and academia. So we do everything, literally.
Okay. So
that creates value. That creates value, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So in terms of, if a government official from Nigeria is watching, what can you help to, to what extent, what's your services to them before we round up?
I think the easiest would be, I can be your connection to JICA, JETRO, and Japanese organizations, government-level organizations that would be willing to work with you on a long-term basis. So basically a kind government partner that works with, they like a lot of zeros in their contracts, so it'll be mutually beneficial. And I would gain entry to Nigeria. And we actually have a product, a healthcare infrastructure product. We are talking with the Nigerian government, Ministry of Health, I think.
Yeah.
So if you're watching, please reach out.
Thank you. You never know. It's the internet. Anybody could get connected. So I don't have a lot of clout, but the little I have, this video, I hope the other 2 videos are saved, so I can probably merge it and upload it on my Facebook and YouTube. But yeah, thank you so much. It's an honor. I know how massive you are, so I don't take this lightly. I've had a few guests which are my friends, but this is like one big major guest, and I appreciate knowing that you fly all over the world, speak at functions and stuff. I really appreciate having you on my platform.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And without taking much of your time, I think you need to go back to bed or get some sleep before morning.
I have a meeting at 5 o'clock, so no issues.
Oh my goodness. So this is normal for you then. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, so that you get ready for your next meeting. I want to appreciate you again. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Guys, follow him on Instagram, and I'm going to add his name on the caption of this video when I save it. Thank you so much, Sujan. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Enjoy your evening.
Cheers. All right. You too. Bye-bye. All right. Thank you, Smoke, as well. I'm going to end the video. It was good having you. And thank you for sharing your thoughts. They were very, very helpful. And I want to be the one to save this video before it cuts out. I don't know why Instagram is cutting me out. I think it's because I've not done a live video for a while. So please, guys, follow Sujan Sanku at Japandian. I'm going to add his handle on the video while I save it. And hopefully, somebody from the Nigerian government can hook up with him, and he's actually big. He's massive. You know, he works with governments of the world, and he speaks at functions. And hopefully, he could help us to assess the much needed grants and loans to help Nigeria to develop, especially in the telecoms industry, so we can stop this issue of struggling to hear somebody on the other side in 2024. So thank you, and have a